So you probably have a lot of questions, and I have answers, at least for the most part. Seeing public safety navigate throughout this chapter is something exceptional. For once in their life, they're actually doing something worthwhile, meaningful, actually problem solving a situation. But is it really problem solving if this is something that they expected and even manipulated to happen? Not really. But it does mean that they're learning, and it does put a bit of fear into me when it comes to understanding Chainsaw Man and cornering him specifically. What do I mean by this? If you haven't realized already, this whole situation is being fabricated. At least that's what it seems like. The idea that public safety is manipulating this entire situation, forcefully feeding specific devils that they've conjured up, a team, so to speak, to feed to Denji so they can actually get things rolling. Well, why does this actually matter? One of the biggest problems that everyone, including public safety, has had for Chainsaw Man is that they don't know how to deal with him. He's too fast, he's too strong, he's difficult to understand and comprehend, and before you know it, you're getting erased from existence. So what would be the best way to mitigate at least a massive portion of those problems? The answer? You manipulate the situation from the beginning. Now that doesn't mean it's going to work or that it's going to be a roaring success, but it does give you a better chance to at least control partially the situation. If you can't control his speed or his strength or his unpredictable nature, what you can do is force him into a corner, force him to feed, force him to eat, force him to erase. There's a really interesting question here when it comes to remembering things that have been erased. We don't actually know how that works. The only character we know that could remember certain things was Makima, but even she did not remember absolutely everything. War is another example of remembering certain things but also not other things, and now this situation here, public safety remembers ear right after it's been erased. So the question comes with how? How is that possible? This is the hardest piece of information to figure out because there's no consistency between any of our subjects, between Makima, between War, and between this study group that public safety have. The only thing that I could think of currently with the lack of information is that it has to be a separate, completely irrelevant observation group, something that is entirely focused on those subjects but is also indirectly disconnected from it. For example, this study group that public safety has is within an observation room. They are specifically detained and here to see if something has been erased. But funny enough, there's a handful of different people for a handful of different devils that can be erased, so they should probably expect that. But if something's getting erased, the concept itself disappears from existence. You don't just randomly remember it. It would most likely take time, if that's a possibility, to re-understand and relearn what an ear actually is. Public safety are already there. Because they're observing this study group and understanding it, they instantly recognize that ear has been erased. Now, while it does take a little bit of time, a couple of conversations length, it does show that there is a process of elimination by observing a separate party. So maybe this is what War and Makima have done. However, the other option that I brought up for those two is that potentially the memories of prior beings can actually jump over things that have been erased and be reborn back into the same devil. Does that make sense? To simplify that, the memories of control and of those things prior to them being erased, and then the control devil being reborn with those said memories, then relinking back up. Now, to really simplify that, the memories of Makima and her actions and her feelings jumping over to Naruto. So now that we've got that out of the way, at least for now, let's move on to the elephant in the room. The mutilated corpse, disgusting primal figure-like thing. Now, there is a couple of options for this devil. As is any primal fear that gets introduced, it's difficult to tell. What is it? Who is it? How strong is it going to be? But there is a couple of little indicators that give us a better idea. Now, there is a higher chance that this is a primal fear, and it's because people have to activate it. Depending on the amount of sacrifice that goes into summoning will equate to the power that gets spawned. So as you might notice, they only cut off their fingers, but it's more ritualistic. It's in front of a mirror, it's in a bathroom, bathroom. It's self-observation of said mutilation. So what devil is it? The mutilation primal fear. And specifically mutilation, and not something equivalent to pain, because it's a primal fear. Mutilation in itself is one of the more difficult primal fears to actually buckle down because it encompasses a lot of different things. It's not just mutilation in itself. But early on, I seen a lot of people get confused and thinking that maybe it was the mirror devil. But the thing with mutilation is that it has a long-term lingering effect. And you can tell honestly through the design itself, there's this self-embodiment of mutilation, this self-isolation, being able to visualize and see yourself losing a body part is honestly a horrific thing. The idea of itself, the concept of mutilation is terrifying. The fact that you have to witness it, the fact that you want to close your eyes to it, the fact that it genuinely changes how you perceive your own body is pretty much the perfect example artistically with how this devil is actually drawn. It's a multitude of different people combined, one covering its eyes, the way it's spawned in through mirrors. To me, it makes the most sense. Now, they only summon a fraction of this devil's power because that's all they can muster, but it does show that they have planned for this. This isn't something that they're just casually throwing together, and I think that's very vital to point out. This whole thing is a plan. This whole thing is being put into motion. Chainsaw Man does take some massive hits, but when it comes to primal fears, it's not really a big deal for him. It's something that he can navigate pretty easily, especially with how quick he can actually resurrect. So while he cops hits and gets annihilated, he resurrects and reforms his body pretty much instantly. The problem is the second person that rocks up, Yoshida, finally back in action, and he's the one using his octopus to squeeze out the remnants of things that have been erased. So right at the end, you see the ear devil get thrown up, and this is huge. This is something that we've known about for a long time, but have never really understood how it would work practically. Now we know it's possible, and if he can throw up ear, he can throw up nuclear warheads, he can throw up a lot of different things. Now, I find it problematic that Yoshida is here. I don't think he's going to attack offensively. Why spawn in a primal fear? If anything, this is going to be defensive fighting, something that Yoshida is also equally good at. But you might ask why? They're not trying to kill him, remember? So why get him to throw up all of this stuff? What is their plan? Well, it looks more and more like they want to starve him. If they start to consecutively throw a lot of things up, stuff that has been erased from existence for a long time, you could bet that in a way that is starving Chainsaw Man. And there's one person with the ability to control that, being Fami. Now, I've talked about Fami controlling Chainsaw Man and trying to starve him, and that this moment here is ultimately part of her plan. She's nowhere to be seen, which makes a lot of sense. To me, it's plausible. It's a possibility and something that feels very accurate currently, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And I say that because, once again, as much as they are learning and understanding how Chainsaw Man operates and they can actually get something like this to happen, which is huge, he's just too unpredictable. He's too fast, he's too strong, and a lot of things can go haywire. Now, I wouldn't be surprised, and just to throw on a bit of a curveball here, and I think I mentioned it previously, if Kobeni is actually aiding public safety with information. The only reason I even mention this is because she's the only person to kind of navigate Chainsaw Man normally through fundamental understanding of what Pochita wants to achieve. Instead of the war, annihilation, extinction level threat that Pochita can be, instead he's also driven by memories, he's driven by dreams, he's driven by things. Kobeni was the one thing to be the opposite of Pochita, actually providing up to said aspirations. That's more of a Hail Mary idea, but if I was public safety, if I was Yoshida and wanted to know anything and everything about how Chainsaw Man functions, I'd be going to her. She's the only person that has been with him directly for a long period of time and has not been attacked or killed. To me, that's impressive. She's the true fear here. As usual, the design for mutilation or whatever this primal fear is, phenomenal. Just super creative, super creepy, super disturbing as it should be, even with what it represents. If it's pain, if it's mutilation, to me the design is just screaming mutilation, self-mutilation, the fear of that, the visuals that come with it, everything just combines perfectly together. I do like the snarkiness of this primal fear. It seems kind of bothered or annoyed that someone's summoning it only for it to be like hit. That could just be me reading into it, but I find it funny. But Fujimoto has cooked here. He's done a great job. And I think this changes a lot of things, not drastically in the sense of recontextualizing the whole story, but more so confirming and understanding more of a lot of things that we previously knew. A lot of old ideas and pieces of knowledge is now getting more screen time. And the more we get, the more we understand the story, the more we see the vision of what Fujimoto is trying to do, the happier we all are. Things are just getting started. We have a long way to go. But the clarity that we're getting every single week, every single chapter is beautiful. The ending may potentially be in sight, but undoubtedly it's going to be a ride to actually get there. And I, for one, am all for it.